UFC 292 in Boston, Massachusetts. Massachusetts.
It's a tough one.
Okay, let's say that right for the Americans. We don't want to offend the Americans in the chat, but yeah, UFC 292 in Boston. Sean O'Malley, might have a little roots in Boston. I'm not for sure, but he goes in there in the main event. We're gonna talk about this in depth. O'Malley getting the knockout second round made it look, I'm gonna say, kind of easy. But before we get into it, make sure you guys go into the descriptions, download the AllStar app, make your picks. Did I pick Sean O'Malley? No, I did not. I picked Aljamain Sterling by submission, which was completely wrong, completely the opposite of what exactly happened. But yeah, go into the descriptions, download the AllStar app, join JSpecs League, win prizes. Did we get a winner for this month or last month?
Well, we had one for last month for July, and that was Preston. But for this UFC pay-per-view event, we try to do the best picker in the space. Unfortunately, there was a delay in the scoring, so we are yet to determine who the champion was to win the prize. So, yes, someone did win, but we're pending, experience points tabulations. But next week we'll announce that winner.
Definitely join JSpec and Sickle on the live spaces during the events. UFC, it could be anything, right? Any major fight that's going on, they are online. They are on Twitter, aka X Twitter. I don't know what it's called anymore, but yeah, it's getting weird out there, Elon Musk. But yeah, so just follow these guys. Their tags are on the screen. Follow me at Korean John _ and on all platforms. And yes, let's get into it, man. Let's get into this main event, this headlining pay-per-view. Sean O'Malley is the UFC bantamweight champion. Sicko has been telling us forever, and he's wearing the shirt. Off air, he was telling us that he had to wear the old school one because to show people that this ain't something new. Go ahead, Sicko.
I can't let people think I'm some new bandwagon fan. I've been on the Rainbow Road for years and years past. There was 20-something of us in a chat watching him play Fortnite after we're watching LFA highlights from him. Like, we've been on this for so many years coming, man. Now that it's finally came true, I wish it was someone other than Aljo. I'm not going to lie, because I do feel bad for him. Like, he never deserved all the negativity that he got. Aljo's always been great. He's always been terrific. To be honest, I always rooted for Aljo in every fight. Sandhagen fight, I was actually rooting for Aljo. The Hyon fight, I was actually rooting for Aljo. Even in the second Hyon fight, I was one of the only people still rooting for Aljo because I was like, no, I think he can still beat him, and I want him to show people. And if he beats Hyon, then all the criticism stops. And I was wrong. It did not. It just continued after that. And then the TJ, I felt bad for him because he didn't get the win over TJ the way we wanted. And then even Henry, which was a huge win in your resume, it was the time off, and Cejudo has ring rust, and so all the times that they discredit him. And I found it hilarious that this whole time you're discrediting Aljamain Sterling, putting asterisks on almost every win he has, but yet he's a 2-1 favorite against Sugar Sean O'Malley. But yet Sean O'Malley has no chance. He has absolutely no way he's going to win this fight. He's going to get backpacked. He's going to get submitted. And trust me, I understood, and I saw why you would think that, right? We haven't seen Sean O'Malley possess any real ground skills. He's never really needed to. Against Hyon, he was able to get up, but big difference between Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling on the ground. We understand all this. But to assume that he had no chance, I think Aljamain Sterling assumed Sean O'Malley had no chance as well, and that's what led to his demise. He went in there. I think he was a little overconfident, and it showed immediately after. One thing that I noted down was training partners. Training partner, I think, played the biggest role in this fight. Sean was very confident in the people he had helping him prepare for Aljo. Aljo was not. I don't know if you remember this, Rob. We had Marcus McGee in the spaces with us. Obviously remember that part. When we were talking to Marcus, I let Marcus know some information. I said, oh, you're fighting JP Buys now? That's cool. He's training with Aljo. Aljo's using him and Julian Erosa to emulate Sean. And if you remember Marcus's reaction to that information, Marcus was like, "That's why is he doing that? Those are terrible partners. There's no way they can emulate Sean O'Malley. They don't even have the height. They don't have the footwork. They don't have the movement. They don't have the speed. Like, those are terrible guys." If you go back and watch Aljo in the post-fight press conference, the first thing he said was, "Looking back at it, I wish we could have brought in some different guys for this camp. His footwork, his movement, I was trying to get my guys to emulate that, but it was way different. I underestimated it. Looking back at it, I should have brought in better guys." I think he was overconfident, man. And you can't be overconfident with a sniper like Sean O'Malley and new champion. We are finally here. He finally did it. The rocket ship is on his back. We've seen guys, Ryan Garcia, we've seen Kevin Durant, Clarissa Shields, people from different walks of life are all talking about Sugar Sean O'Malley. He's already grown in popularity. He's already gained an extra 350,000 followers on Instagram just from last night. He was like at 2.9. Now he's at like 3.2, 3.3 million followers. It's only going to continue from here. This was, and I said it going in, I know a lot of people felt this of, do we really think he's going to have a Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo moment? That's lightning in a bottle. That only strikes once, man. He's not going to have that type of moment. And somehow the crazy bastard did.
Well, it was one of the closest things you could get to a Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo moment. You know, there's videos out there that they put up the finish like side by side. Of course, Sean's happened in the second round. You know, Conor's happened 12 seconds, 8, 9 seconds, 13 seconds, whatever into the fight. But yeah, there's some similarities there, man. Sean O'Malley, the thing that sticks out the most before we get into J-Spec's opinions about the fight is that he talked the talk and walked the walk. That's what it is about in fighting. That's the only thing it's about. Is if you can talk the talk and walk the walk, you're gonna be a champion. You're gonna be making millions of dollars. You're gonna be one of the best out there on the planet Earth. Talk the talk, walk the walk, and you could tell Sean throughout the last couple of fights, his confidence was there, but it wasn't there to the point where it was a little shaken after the Peter Yan fight, right? Like he even admitted it. But man, now his confidence, there's no stopping him, right? He's the champion. Like there's no like and next step to this. It's like you become a champion. Now you just gotta maintain. And I think he's gonna become, that whole like you become 10% better once you get the strap. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Leon Edwards, I think he's the one who said it. He showed it. I think Sean O'Malley, he showed it as well, and he's going to show it in his next couple of fights. But hey, there's a roll of killers waiting for him. Like some of them are really bad matchups, but man, Sean, he's big, he got power, and he's got elusive striking. And we've seen other guys with that same skill set last quite a bit of time as a champion throughout the years. So J-Spec, what'd you think of Aljamain Sterling? Did he make a mistake? Did he underestimate Sean O'Malley? Before we get into his opinions and his comments, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. J-Spec, what'd you get?
Here's the thing. I'm not going to say that he underestimated Sugar. I wouldn't say that. Did he make a mistake? Yup. Like, just go play the fight. He punched from way far out as cover to try to cover distance on an entry and misjudged how much distance he needed for that entry. He came up wildly short, had to reload in no man's land, and got banged on. Like, it's not elementary, but that's not like super crazy, super fight science. That's like next tier IQ, fight IQ. And he just cleaned him out. I don't know what Aljo was doing as a whole in that fight because, like Sicko mentioned, the whole world had this vision, and me included, that Aljo was going to spend 20 minutes or more on Sean's back. Well, to get to Sean's back, you need to be grappling or touching Sean in some facet at all, and he wasn't. He didn't try anything really other than pretend like he wanted to strike. I just think it was a pretty poor performance for Aljo scaling Aljo against himself in previous title defenses. We look at his previous title defenses versus this performance, it's clear as day. Obviously, he's losing the title, but it's just nothing was working. Maybe something more is to the truth of what Sickle brought up about the camp or who he had there, but to me, he wasn't looking like he was trying to implement his A game as soon as possible, or wasn't even camouflaging or disguising it. There was not even like this like buildup of some kind of technique coming your way. It was just no activity and this misjudged entry, and boom. That's just what it is. We're talking about some of the best fighters in the world, right? We're talking about the best fighter in the world at this weight. This is what we're talking about. And you can't make those kind of mistakes. You really just can't. And that's all it really came down to. So respect to Sugar. Good job, man. I mean, I think you make a lot of people happy, bro. You got a lot of fans, more fans than ever. Good to see a young person have success. On the other hand, the conundrum and the problem we were talking about for the past couple of weeks about this division and the Marab thing, hey, maybe the fight gods cleaned that up all on itself and we don't have to worry about it no more. With all that being said, I just want to echo, just one more thing Seko said. Sickly, it's so many great points, dude. You're killing it. Is that Aljo got a lot of shit about acquiring the belt and while he had the belt. And I hope, for one reason or another, however it goes down the line, that this misplaced hate for Aljo goes away. And I wish him success. I don't know if it's in this weight class or another. He's obviously got goods. He's got plenty of good fights left in him. He just he just made a critical mistake against a person that you can't make that mistake against. And that's my take on that fight.
Yeah, man, it's a conundrum, like you said, for Aljo, because Aljo has been treated terribly as a champion, and it's very parallel to Tyron Woodley, right? And kind of like what he went through. And in Tyron Woodley, he had a decent reign as a champion. He didn't get a rematch. He never even saw a title fight after he lost it to Kamaru Usman. And I hope the same thing doesn't happen to Aljo. I hope Aljo gets back in there, wins, and maybe even give him a rematch. Does he deserve a rematch, Sicko? Like, would the UFC want? Now it's about business, right? Now it's about selling. Now it's about who's the biggest fight. And it seems like Sean O'Malley's already moved on to Cheeto.
Yeah.
And Cheeto did his part by winning earlier in the night. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But what is the best scenario to make the most money? Because at the end of the day, it's about making the most money. It's not about who deserves this and who deserves that, right, in the UFC.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Sean has thought about this for a very long time. Go back and look at interviews. Sean always said that Cheeto rematch needs to happen when it's the perfect time, when it's going to gain the most views, when it's going to get the most eyeballs. Then that's when I'm going to want it. I don't want it now. I don't want it immediate. It needs to happen at the right time, when it's either the fight to get to the belt or a fight for the belt. He's been calling his shots, man. He's been calling his shots for a very, very long time. Don't let the tattooed faces, don't let the 6'9" on his shoulder and the colorful hair fool you. This is a very intelligent guy. Shaved eyebrows. Don't let all this fool you. He's actually a very intelligent guy who, remember, he's doing all this on his own, and he has the luxury of doing it on his own. Marab doesn't have the luxury of calling out who he wants. Neither does Aljo. Neither does so many guys in all these divisions. They don't have the luxury because they're under certain management. And we also have to look out for this guy and that guy. Sean don't have to look out for anybody. There's nobody Sean has to think about or look out for when he's calling shots and doing his thing. It's all him, what he wants to do. And he's been calling for this Cheeto fight for a long time. He's been setting it up, blowing past Marab, blowing past everybody. And then they get the help of Sandhagen. Sandhagen made a terrible, terrible decision to fight Font. There's no reason. When he was supposed to fight Umar, I was like, I wouldn't take it. But then he gave us that nugget where the UFC told him, if you win, it is a guaranteed title shot. And I was like, okay, cool. I understand it. Then he pulls out. I'm like, why are you still taking on Rob Font? This makes no sense. Rob Font doesn't give you a title shot. That, that deal was off the table when it became Rob Font instead of Nurmagomedov. So why are we taking this fight? And he does Cheeto the biggest favor and gets injured. We don't know how long he's out for. I'm assuming he won't be ready for December. So if you just look at that aspect of it, yeah, it's got to be Cheeto. It's Cheeto, and that's it. And Cheeto did his job. He made sure he won that fight to set himself up. He should be thanking Sean O'Malley because Sean O'Malley's given him a bypass of anybody else who is more deserving of it. And this is the fight, man. This is the big one. Does Aljo deserve a rematch? It's tough to say. It's tough to say because this wasn't a Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards situation. Aljo wasn't dominating a fight for 4 rounds, implementing his game plan, overwhelming Sean, getting to his back, controlling time, and then Sean lands that shot in the 5th round, right? If that had happened, I think we'd be calling for an immediate rematch, but this wasn't. Like, say what you want. Maybe Aljo should have shot earlier. Maybe he should have tried a little bit harder to be a little bit more relentless on those takedowns, but he got to Sean's legs twice. Didn't take him down. And then he shot in lazy once and got put out. So to give an immediate rematch to that, I don't know. I'm not sure. And we still have to see what happens with Aljo because, like I said, when you look at Sean, there's nobody else that Sean has to think about. Aljo does have to think about somebody else. And it's the guy that he's been stepping on as a stepping stone this whole way through, which is his best friend, his buddy, Merab. What happens with Merab? If Aljo stays in that division and especially wants another rematch, Merab's another year and a half away from even being talked about. Like, there's no reason for Merab to be in that division if Aljo's there. This was supposed to be Aljo moving on. And, I mean, what happened? Aljo said, I'm going to move up to 145. I'm going to move up to 145 as soon as he loses immediately. I mean, not even a day, not even an hour, immediately on the mic. I don't know, man. I think maybe I'll stay here at 135. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. Like, Merab ain't getting nothing.
Yeah. Preston, he agrees, man. He says for the longest time, Aljo said, win or lose, he's moving up. You can't change your mind now that you're lost the belt. Well, Aljo can't win any battles, even in the post-fight interviews, right? Like, people are already criticizing him for his comments about staying in the division when he told everybody he would leave the division. But I think there's a little stipulation to that. I think if he would have won, he would have left the division, right? Or he would have moved up. I think there's something being lost in there. I don't think he ever said that if he would lose the fight, because you never say you're gonna lose, right?
They were referring to an interview that Sean and him did together.
Okay.
It was Fight Week. I don't know if it was for ESPN or who did it, but it was a joint interview that they did together, and they were kind of going back and forth. And Sean told him, they asked Aljo, if you win or lose, are you moving up to 45? And Sean cut him off and was like, when I sleep him, he's going to want to come back. When I knock him out, he's going to want the rematch. And he was like, and when I beat him, I'm fighting Cheeto next. And Aljo was like, nah, if you beat me, you got Merab next. Like, you got to deal with Merab. So that's the interview that everyone's pointing to of like,
okay.
You know what I mean? You said if you beat me, you got to fight Merab next. And now you're like, nah, I want the rematch.
Merab is doing the best Spliff Star impersonation. If you know who Spliff Star is, like, if you know, then you know. But if you don't know, Spliff Star is Busta Rhymes' hype man. Like, everybody knows who Busta Rhymes is, but the guy that's next to him just hyping him up, just like playing that role, that's Merab. All week he was at during fight week, he's like trying to troll Sean O'Malley. He even brought the jacket out again, right? Like, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Merab is like a truly a good friend, maybe to a fault. In this game, it's only you, man. Like, you have training partners, you have a team, but you go out there and fight, and if you lose, you're the one that's gonna lose, man. I know the team loses too, but it affects you the most. Before we move on, we'll get into some of these comments. Preston, he had another comment earlier. I think Sean had Aljo really frustrated after the first round with Sean's movement, leading to that early second round TKO, possibly. But Sean, he was ready, man. He was ready for the types of takedowns that Aljo was going to implement. He was ready for everything, man. Like, he kept his distance really well. And then when Aljo pressed forward, he put his back against the cage so he could use the cage to defend. You know, like, you've seen in glimpses of like improvements on his side, and he knows that he's gonna have to face a bunch of guys that's gonna want to wrestle him and try to choke him out, try to break his arm. So I think he's been working on that a lot. He does have a phenomenal jiu-jitsu coach in Toquinho, right? He's like 50-time world champion or some shit like that. Fought in the UFC as well, has MMA experience. And it's great for him to have his coach, the Red Hawk or whatever his name is, and he only focuses on Sean. Like that's his job. Like him and Sean are like attached at the hip. Like that's a huge advantage, right? Most coaches have like 10, 15, 20 fighters that they have to go through. The top coaches in the world, they're traveling every week, right? But Sean has his own personal coach and guru or whatever the hell he is. And man, they proved that it works. And Sean is the champion. Let's go to some of these other comments. M, shout out to M for joining us. If you look at the fighters Aljo beat during his win streak, you can see him underestimating O'Malley. Yeah, the thing is, like, he lost to the guy that he had the best chance of beating in a title fight. Skill, like when you put him on paper, that's what people thought, right? That's why people are underestimating. If you look at the predictions thing, it was like 99% picking Aljo to win the fight, right? Even myself, I picked Aljo to win just because of the ground game, but it never got to the ground. Let's get to Brianna Frost coming through again. Shout out to Brianna Frost with another super sticker. Appreciate that. And go follow Brianna Frost on Twitter and her OnlyFans. Good content out there. And Brianna was saying that I would watch O'Malley fight Vera over O'Malley fighting Sterling. I think a lot of people would, and O'Malley knows that because O'Malley knows the style that Cheeto's going to bring. Cheeto's going to bring that push forward style that O'Malley can counter off of. And I think O'Malley already knows that how he's going to beat Cheeto. He's probably ran that through in his mind and in practice 100 million times. And that's why it's all set up, right? I hate to bring up Izzy, but Izzy's the guy that's kind of like showing these young fighters the path, man. Like you put out the path that you want to follow and you follow that path, right? And I think Izzy has shown that, and O'Malley's doing the same thing. And also, let's go back to built-in excuses, right? Because it seems like when Sterling won the title and when he defended the title, there was always some kind of built-in excuse, right? The shoulder of Dillashaw, the time off for Cejudo. Now, there's also a built-in excuse for this fight as well, even if he's losing, is that he returned too fast. He was injured ahead of this fight. The UFC booked that fight. Remember, I think it's already all lost, is that Aljo was fighting against the UFC to delay this fight. Remember? Like they didn't want it. Like Aljo didn't want this fight in Boston this quick of a turnaround. And he had some injury as well, I believe. But, I guess they put the money on the table and Aljo took the bait. It's kind of like the Sean Strickland UFC Sydney Izzy situation, right? Like they wanted somebody to take the fight with a quick turnaround. You know what I mean? Like those are built-in excuses, right? Is it an excuse? It could be valid, but is it valid in the eyes of Sean O'Malley fans? Hell no. Sean O'Malley's the champ now. It doesn't matter, right? Those things will be lost in history. And all we remember is that Sean O'Malley knocked out Aljamain Sterling in the second round to win the world title. That's all we're going to remember. So there you go. So J-Spec, you think Cheeto is the fight to make? And Sicko, Cheeto is the fight to make? And is it going to sell pay-per-views? Is J-Spec, let's talk, because we talked about this earlier, and I told you we were going to talk about this. Is he a pay-per-view draw? Like, and before he gets into that, I'll let you know that there are other factors. There's other ways to measure if you're a star, right? It's not just about pay-per-views. But J-Spec, is he a pay-per-view draw?
And that's a great question, John. That is the question I've been mulling over since actually maybe Friday for some reason. It came to my head, and I just don't have the answer. Gotta wait for. I know they don't post the official purchases, the pay-per-views anymore, but you get to find somewhat kind of information down the line. I just got to be patient to see what last night's buys were like. That's going to give me some kind of idea of what Sean O'Malley is like as a pay-per-view seller. Now, what is this topic? What does this matter? As far as championship goes, champions, because there's many, it matters a lot. One, it's how much money they're making, but two, it's their popularity and how much favor you're going to curry from the UFC. If you were one of their super bread makers, I'm gonna be honest, they wouldn't do you dirty like they did Aljo. They wouldn't have you defending your belt, turning around, do or die right away. if you were making that cash for them, like some of the other guys do, and you already know their names. So with that being said, it is important in that regard. But man, do I think he's gonna be a pay-per-view sell? In my personal opinion, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no only on this reason. His big chunk of his fan base is sub 30 years old. Like that demographic doesn't buy pay-per-views that much. So I think there's going to be a hindrance based on who he's actually attracting in fandom, who would actually pay to see him fight. But the X factor is the Cheeto fight. Is Cheeto in the fight? Cheeto won, yes, most deserved, most clear person to challenge him. Maybe not from a ranking standpoint, but as far as draw, like it's automatic. Bree said it earlier. You guys said it. It's like it's instant automatic. Everybody wants to see it. Let's do it. It has a built-in story. It's perfect for a championship match. It's like just add water, instant awesomeness. Will that fight sell? Yeah, because it has built-in juices and good story already in it. So maybe his first title defense will have a better purchase rate than any other he may or may not have in the future. But that's a tricky one. But Cheeto, good for him. That's what I want to talk about just a little bit. Good for him. When you talk about, we see it all the time in the negative aspect where like things fall apart or don't go right. Well, cool for Cheeto that the Legos, if you will, the Tetris pieces lined up just the right way, and he's gonna get a good crack at the world title that everybody wants to see, and hopefully they make a butt ton of money off of it. That's all I really can say, and that's my final thoughts on that one.
Cheeto's the luckiest man in the division, right, Sicko? Like, how do you go
part
off
of it's
and
luck.
beat the guy, lose a bunch of fights, and still be in the title picture?
Yeah, I mean, you beat the guy, right? Isn't that the number one thing? You beat the guy. How did Poatan get his title shot against Izzy? He beat him, even in a different sport. He beat him, and that's what you really need because that's what's going to draw. Izzy got to the point where, differently than Sean, but Izzy got to the point where there was just no other. You had to bring somebody in. You have to get somebody for Cheeto and Sean. It's a little bit different, just because of the injuries. One, Merab just keeps shooting himself in the foot. Merab is just. He's the number one cheerleader, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Like Merab is just comfortable with that role of being the right-hand man to the guy. So it's his fault. And then, like I said, Corey Sandhagen making a terrible decision, in my opinion. I think those two things lined up perfectly for Cheeto. Cheeto said, wait, I could be on the same card? Well, if I'm on the same card, then that means I could fight whenever he wants to fight next. And if this guy's hurt and that guy's hurt, please, Sean, please tell me you want to fight again this year. And Sean threw him a bone and said, hell yeah, because you know what I get now that I didn't get in this fight? Pay-per-view points. So if I'm getting pay-per-view points, you bet your ass I'm bringing whoever I think gets the most eyeballs for me. That gives me the most money, and that's Cheeto because that's who beat me already. It lines up perfectly. Cheeto made the right decision. And if I'm not mistaken, Cheeto was supposed to fight Henry. Henry was a no-go, right? It was supposed to be Henry, Cheeto was supposed to be Henry, Merab, and then Henry said he wasn't ready. So blame those three guys. Blame Henry for not being ready, blame Merab for not being ready, and blame Sandhagen for taking a fight he should have never took. The three guys that could not Cejudo. He does not have a claim because he lost. But the two guys that have a claim over Cheeto screwed themselves, man. They screwed themselves out of this fight. And I think that's what Sean was mentioning and kind of referring to. A lot of stuff, if you remember, there's still a lot of information, juicy information that Sean O'Malley has been holding on to. He's hinted on Twitter. He's hinted about it on different podcasts, on different shows with Ariel Helwani saying, hey, after this fight, there's a load of bombs I'm going to drop, a bunch of information about how these managers are killing the careers of these guys, how these managers are dirty scumbags, and I'm going to air it all out, and I'm going to put them on blast. He's referring to Corey Sandhagen's team. He's referring to that squad.
Wasn't he part of that management team?
Yeah, and he felt like they were trying to screw him over, and he feels like they are screwing Corey over big time. And he feels like Corey was forced into this fight because he's not getting enough money. He has to keep fighting because he's paying them a crazy, ridiculous amount of money. And that's what he's been airing out. So it's going to be more. I don't know all the information that he has, so I'm waiting to see it. But it's true. when you look at the fights that these guys are taking and you look at the course that these guys are taking on their career, whether it's Bilal Muhammad, whether it's all these guys where you're sitting there going, how have you not gotten your break yet? How have you not gotten your chance? Why are you still taking these fights? What is your manager doing for you? When on the meantime, you go, oh, Sean O'Malley gets this Dana White privilege and he gets all those, but he doesn't have a manager. There's no one representing him. He's
and you don't really see him. You don't really ever see him talking with Dana White either. Like, I don't think he even.
He has
you don't have to. You don't.
Sean Shelby.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't really have to be speaking with Dana White to get what you want. Like, there's other people. This is a multi-billion-dollar company. You don't talk straight with the boss. You talk with the people that run a certain department that you are. What is it? Fuck. The words are not coming to my mind, to my head, but you're affected by, right? So Sean, I think his dad manages him, to be honest with you. Him and his dad take care of
his mom does like the money stuff.
Yeah. So, and man, like, he's making the right moves. We'll see what happens. But I see Sean O'Malley. He holds the cards now. I see him picking his fights. And if the fight that he doesn't happen as fast, then the next challenger will get the fight, right? But
I will say this, though, about Cheeto.
Corey, what?
Cheeto's the toughest challenge for Sean. Even considering Cejudo, Merab, Cheeto's the toughest fight for Sean. And we can get into that.
I'm opposite. I think Cheeto is the best fight for O'Malley because O'Malley already fought him. And he knows that he's not going to change his style.
I just like that. The thing I don't like for Sean in the Cheeto fight, and the person that really brought this up, that really made me think about it more, was Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse had a little breakdown on Sean and why Sean is able to catch Aljo. And he talks about entering range with punches. And he was like, the one person who doesn't enter range with punches is Cheeto. Cheeto enters range with a high guard. He's like, to beat Sean, you have to have like a Muay Thai guard. You can't enter with punches. He's going to counter you. He's like, that's the issue. When you watch back the Cheeto and Sean, the first fight, Sean was having a really hard time letting punches go because Cheeto walks forward. He just walks in with a high guard. He doesn't open himself up at all. And he's like, if Cheeto has a power advantage, it could affect Sean a lot because neither one of them are going to shoot for takedowns, right? We know that. Like, neither one of them are going to take each other down. So it becomes, how does Sean find it? And I'm not saying Sean can't. I have all the confidence. If you tell me to make a prediction, I say Sean wins by KO. But I can see where other guys are just so inferior to Sean in the striking game that if they can't get him down, they're going to get knocked out. And we saw that with Aljo. Aljo's, like you said, how do you make that mistake? Like, how do you throw that punch, leave your chin up? Like, I mean, it was so exposed when Sean's throwing the right hand, Aljo's closing his eyes. He's like, oh no, I'm about to get knocked out. He knew it. He felt it. He knew he made a huge mistake. And the Mighty Mouse breakdown, I was like, damn, he's right. Like, you do have to enter in close range or enter in boxing range with a high guard. You can't enter it by throwing strikes. Sean's just too precise and he's too good of a counter striker for that.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And I see O'Malley fighting Cheeto in the beginning of next year, probably in Vegas somewhere. It'll be a phenomenal fight. It could possibly even be a pay-per-view headliner just because it's a rematch and they could build some steam with that. And to see if O'Malley really is a pay-per-view draw. We know that he's a huge star on social media. We know that he has a very successful YouTube channel. We know that he is friends with all the younger generation stars, so to say, the YouTuber generation, all of that stuff, the backpacker generation, the drill rap I don't know what you want to call it, whatever generation it's called. But he is part of that. And I think that's what Dana White wants. Dana White understands that he has the 30-year-old demographic, the 40-year-olds, because they've been watching for a while, right? But that earlier generation where they have all that disposable income, the people that live at their house with their parents and they're not going to move out until they're 50 years old, those are the people that Dana White wants.
Guys, this is not going to fail. He's going to get big pay-per-view numbers. We talk about the machine, the marketing machine of the UFC. This was a Sean O'Malley event. This was not an Aljamain Sterling headline pay-per-view. This was a Sean O'Malley fight. It's in Boston. It's the O'Malley name. Everyone's wearing those green jerseys O'Malley had made a long time ago with the Boston Celtics colors. He has his name on the canvas. The promo was all Sean O'Malley. Everybody in there was Sean O'Malley. Everything they had was Sean O'Malley. Happy Dad. All the posters up everywhere are Sean O'Malley. The partnership with the Nelk Boys, a direct connection to Sean O'Malley because he also is with the Nelk Boys and does stuff with Happy Dad. After the fight, when have you ever seen the UFC post the full knockout on social media? Never, but they did this time. When do you ever see the UFC post the full round, an entire round with the celebration, with the knockout, with the interview on their YouTube channel? Never. They did for this one. They are not going to let Sean O'Malley not be a giant draw and a huge star. They are pushing all their chips towards him. They are going to make sure that he is the guy moving forward because the guys that they have, I mean, let's be honest. If we don't think Sean O'Malley is a draw, who is? Stylebender?
It's not about that he's not a draw, dude. It's just about because said group that he's the target of. He is the spearhead of that generation. The question is that generation in line with the pay-per-view model? Because this younger generation, his generation he represents, you guys got so lucky to grow up with YouTube already in your life. That came into our life later, so you guys got so many fights, different avenues. Like, think about it. For John and I, we got one UFC a month on pay-per-view when we were in college. Now, the same group, that same demographic, young 20-year-olds, they have multiple fight organizations to watch every week. And with all these options to watch for free, like you mentioned on YouTube and everything else, are you sure they're going to buy the pay-per-view at $80 a crack? I'm just that's the question. It's not about how much of a star Sean is, because Sean's a megastar for sure.
Yeah, if we're talking about will it do over 1 million, I have some reservations about that, just because I think the pay-per-view model itself is it's so hard to get 1 million pay-per-view buys, man. Like, it is so hard to get 1 million pay-per-view buys now. So just the model itself, I think, is what makes it more difficult. But in terms of like where's he rank in terms of UFC fighters and their pay-per-view draw, the only person I think that can still get more than him right now is Izzy. That's the only person I see. I don't see any other champion or any other fighter,
John,
not including Connor, obviously. Man, even John, just because I don't know if John has the partner. I don't know if John has the backstory and the dance partner with it.
Stipe is a strong enough B-side. We'll see it. We'll see it.
Stipe, though. I just think everyone still remembers Stipe getting destroyed. You know what I mean? But yeah, maybe even John. And I would have a way different opinion if it wasn't a knockout. If Sean won this fight by decision, especially if it was controversial decision, then I would not be saying this. But to win by knockout, we see what a knockout in the championship fight does, how it catapults people. And I think if he wasn't that pay-per-view draw before, he is now with this knockout.
There you go, man. We'll find out. We'll find out as he gets his first title defense locked in, if he is a pay-per-view draw. But if the people that are listening right now, they know anything about me, I don't really give a damn about pay-per-view draws or pay-per-view sales. That shit don't change my life.
We don't touch it, huh? Yeah, we don't get no part of that.
We don't get none of that. Let's move on to the co-main event. Another title fight. You know what I mean? That first one, O'Malley, the new generation, the Sugar era has started. Now, the co-main event was a 5-rounder, and this, if you look up the word dominant in the dictionary, this fight, you could just put the URL for this fight next to that word, right? Because look at the numbers, man. Like, of course, we always look at numbers and say, oh, they don't really tell us much about the fight, but these numbers are nuts, right? Like, for a title fight, you would not expect this to be like this. 296 total strikes landed to 29. Significant strikes, let's skip over that because we don't know which ones are really that significant. Headshots, 106 to 19 in 25 minutes. Body shots, 37-3. Leg kicks, 20-2. And control time, 16 minutes to a mere 34 seconds. And 6 takedowns landed by Weili. Why did they not put the fight between Yan Xiaonan, China versus China? You know what I mean? Like, why didn't they put that? Like, now, when you, in hindsight, you think like was Lemoshay, sorry, Lemoshay. That's how you're supposed to say it. Lemoshay, was she deserving of a title shot? I don't even know now because look at the number. J Spec, tell us, like, what you thought when the fight was going on.
I thought about all the things I need to do around my house and chores wise because nothing was changing in that match. It was Weili on top. Well, like you said, I said it during our watch party together, right, Sickle? I was like, take the word dominance in capital letters and just have it slowly scrolling across the screen because that's all that's happening here. Like, not taking anything away from Weili. First off, congratulations, Ms. Zhang, like champ. You like by a country mile. That expression applies here. Like she had it going so good. She made it look easy. It's one of those performances where it was so dominant, like you said. There was so much in one person's wheelhouse that you could draw like 100 comparisons. You could make 100 accolades for Weili, and you could make 100 detractions for Amanda. It was real bad, honestly. Like it wasn't all that entertaining unless you're a hardcore Zhang fan. Then obviously you're cheering the whole time because she received absolutely no damage, like you mentioned. Like, dude, come on, 29 strikes in a 5-round fight, 29 strikes. That's all you received on your body in a world title fight for 25 fucking minutes. Are you kidding? Like, that's impressive to all hell. So dominant is a word, impressive, tactical, and I liked in the 5th round she turned it up a little bit. Like she obviously she was very aware of her cardio and her gas tank and all that stuff, but she did everything she needed to do correctly for 4 rounds. Then came the 5th round. She knew she had the lead. She knew she had the advantage. She started kind of hurting Amanda a little bit more. I think a good number of the stats kind of came on in that round. And she just put an extra stamp on this, like kind of saying, that's right, motherfucker. Like, this is all mine. To me, that's the way she kind of closed the show. So good for her. On the other side, Ms. Lemos, shit, or Lemos, if that's the way it's supposed to go. My bad. No disrespect. If she's it's crazy because you see this in this age, right? It's year 2023. Obviously, women's MMA was going on for a while, but this kind of gap, this kind of just empty void in your fight game, says a lot of where women's MMA is right now. Because there was just, if you had like a chart of attributes, Amanda, I mean, maybe just like a 1 or 2 score in the grappling, counter wrestling, counter jiu-jitsu department, like just really blank. She struck out bad, I guess would be the good comparison for that. She struck out bad in those departments. Other than that, though, solid night in the office for the champ. Very well deserving. And maybe, John, they will put together a China versus China super fight in a more fitting venue for those fans. You know, maybe not Boston's not the best fight to have a Chinese super fight. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if you're gonna go to like, well, you know, she's the co-main event, so I don't think like they're probably just trying to put another title fight on this card, you know, on top of O'Malley and Sterling. So Zhang Weili, I'm just the only fight that I want to see. There's 2 fights actually that I want to see with her as the champion is the fight against Rose Namajunas because she's lost twice to her already, and the fight against Yan Jianan, you know, China versus China situation. I don't know how close the UFC is to putting on a show in China. Well, they've been putting on shows in the Apex. Well, they did, yeah, a couple of shows like, what was it, a month or 2 ago inside the Apex, but that's not an arena. That's not a stadium. That's not, you know, a venue, right? That's just the Apex in China, in Shanghai. So we don't know if that will actually, you know, come to fruition as something like perfect. But if it doesn't happen in China, they need to fight each other next because Rose Namajunas is going up to flyweight to go chase after the title up there. It seems like. So let's see if they could put that fight together. I think it happens. and if it does happen, they should probably put it in Asia. Most likely, they're going to put it in Singapore, right? Because Singapore has a pretty good deal, and that would be a phenomenal fight night main event, right? A title fight night main event, maybe even a pay per view. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's what they need, what they should put together. But you know how that works out. Sicko, what'd you think, man? Lemos, like
I
what
mean,
does she do?
Lemos, that was big sister, little sister. She was, this was the say uncle. When the big brother or something was on top of you, why you hitting yourself? Like this was that type of a wedgie, if you will. I mean, she was just getting completely dominated from start to finish. When you look at some fights, you go, man, if they fight 10 times, how many times would the loser win? 0 for Lemos. 0 for Amanda. She's not winning. It was just complete domination everywhere. Zhang Weili was too sharp, too quick on the feet. Her takedowns were too good. She gets in on shots and really crisp angles. She's so fast in her way to change levels and get to it. I mean, Amanda was trying to fight off takedowns so late. I mean, she was just so deep on her hips when she was getting taken down. And then on the ground, you can't get up. She had one kind of desperate ninja choke that she tried in there, but with where Weili was, she wasn't in real big trouble. And that was her only one chance in that fight. Other than that, I mean, tell me how you want Zhang Weili to be better, and that's how she was better. You want her to be better on the feet, that's how she was better. Grappling, getting the fight to the ground, she was better. In the clinch, she was better. On the ground, passing guard, she was better. Retaining top position, she was better. Like, just everywhere, literally everywhere. And for everybody talking about the power of Amanda does have a lot of power. But I think there's a difference between power in your hands and just overall strength. And I think there is a giant strength advantage for Zhang Weili. And I mean, here we go, man. Another win. Zhang is a Bang Tao, right, John?
Yeah. I saw her a few weeks back.
Bang Tao's finest, baby.
Getting ready for the fight over here before she went to the States.
Good for that gym.
It's good for that gym.
Well-deserving champion.
Yeah, she's been there since the beginning, which is wild too. Like she brings in her coach.
Yeah.
And then, but she utilizes the coaches here while she's here as well. And then the sparring partners, that she has. And then she has Josh Hinger when she goes back to the States, who she actually met out here. So, yeah, she has a very good combination of coaches. And, yeah, man, she's looking unstoppable again, man. She looks like she did when she won the title.
Yeah, I think her toughest opponent is one fight away, which is Tatiana Suarez. I think Tatiana kind of did herself a disservice when she first came back. Her first fight back was a weight up. She said she wanted to be at 125, and then after that was like, nah, I can still make the weight, and came back down. Where I was like, damn, if that was 2 full fights at 115 while still being undefeated, I think Tatiana would be in this position and not Amanda, and that fight is very different. Tatiana's a very, very difficult opponent.
Well, Tatiana Suarez will fight for the title in 2024.
Undefeated, man.
Right? Yeah, she's undefeated. If she stays undefeated, she's gonna be fighting for the title, no matter who the champion is. Like she's uncrowned, right? Like she's gonna be there.
Just injuries, man. She's only lost to injuries. That's it.
Injuries, she's cancer.
Yeah, she's been dominant when she's in the octagon. It's just a different level of grappling, a different level of wrestler. They've never seen anything like her. Just gotta stay healthy.
Yeah. It's there's still fights to be made, man. It's not like she's cleaned out the division. That should not be even talked about. There's Hyon, there's Suarez, there's a couple others coming up as well. You know what I mean? Like being a champion in that division is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just be like, oh, I'm moving up to flyweight because I've dominated. No.
And to your point, John, her biggest fight numbers wise is still Rose. Rose is still the most popular fighter. And I mean, listen, just because Rose moves up doesn't mean she won't move back down.
No. I could see that the UFC maybe trying to push for that eventually, but we'll see. It's right circumstances, right? Right now, it's probably not the right circumstances because Rose has a fight at flyweight and looks like she's putting on weight to stay in that division. So who knows? But, an extra 10 pounds, we'll see. Just what you think of what's the future for Zhang?
I think the future is gonna be awesome. I'm full disclosure, I'm a Zhang fan. I think she's awesome. Like she's legitimately a really solid athlete. And I've liked things, outside of the octagon that she said when confronted with goofball political stuff. She's answered it like a champ. I like that kind of stuff. So she doesn't play those kind of cards. I just like her. I just wish I spoke Chinese. Like, I just wish I could have like
Yeah.
a real conversation with her. That's my only regret as a fan of hers. But other than that, I think she's I think she's got a few defenses in her. I'm not going to be one of those crazy people like, oh, she's going to be the GOAT or she's going to have the most defensive of all time. But Suarez is a problem. I recognize that. That's definitely a thing. But until she's ready to go, until that fight's being booked, the others that we mentioned, I think she's got that. I think she's got. So the next, if you look at the rankings, and I don't have them right in front of me right at the moment, but I think that you can easily find 2 to 3 defenses in the top 5 or even the top 10. You could got a lot more. So she's, like John said, she's got work to do. There's a lot of opponents. If you're smart about it, in my opinion, just my opinion, if you're smart about it while you have the strap, pick the easiest fights. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I said it. Like, pick the easiest fights while you're the champion. There's no such thing as easy fight when you're talking about the best athletes in the world, top 5 in the world. There's no such thing, really. But most favorable when you consider all factors. Um, I hope she holds the belt long enough for what John said. A mega fight that has a like a global, what's the word? A global impact. You know what I mean?
That
We're so
global reach.
spoiled. Yeah, I'm so spoiled as an American. We're so spoiled as Americans in the sport and having, being involved with that for so long that I would like, and I know China has a shit ton of people and a shit ton of athletes coming in, and they already got a good footprint of athletes in the UFC, but to have like a cool, I'm for it. Like, I'm cool, like this mega like Chinese fight in Asia or in China or however it works out. That'd be pretty sweet to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so all the best to Jianan in the future. Now, I guess going to the John's back, sweet, because I was going to go to the other fight that I really wanted to talk about. Chris Weidman and Brad Tavares. There's a little bit of echo there, but anyways, I think that fight's gonna be not gonna be, but it was something to be remembered. I think Chris Weidman, salute to him, warrior, fucking class act for even getting in shape again to make it in walk into the octagon again. Like, hats off to you, buddy. Like, you had all the reason in the world to just not ever fight again, and all the reasons in the world, but you. From the interviews that I've seen of his and heard and read some of his replies, this was like a personal quest. Now, on the other hand, now things being fair, like, one, happy for you, bud. Second part, reality check. I think Brad Tavares was being nice as shit to you. I think he gave you a little bit of aloha spirit, my brother. He didn't kill you the way he could have. He could have really took your leg off. He was hitting you like anybody else would have in that leg, let's be honest. But he saw you weak. He didn't spam that attack, though he could have. And with that being said, the way Chris was reacting throughout the fight was not indicative of a person who's healthy enough to fight MMA anymore. And on any level, to be honest. So, Mr. Weidman, with all the respect in the world, I appreciate you. Thank you, champ. And I hope that whatever it was in your theoretical basement inside your chest, inside your heart, that you wanted to get off your chest and get out there and get into the cage again, I hope you satisfy that urge. I know you got a lot of successful other ventures outside the octagon, so Brad, please retire. That's what I'm asking for, because he's like our boy Den in our watch party. Shout out Den.
Shout out Dan.
I'm quoting him, is a wounded animal, and that's what he is in the cage. And all these guys are killers. So, Mr. Weidman, thank you, but please hang it up. And that's my thoughts about that fight.
Chris Weidman. Man, I picked Tavares to win by decision, and that's what I expected in that fight. Tavares is just at a better position in his career. He's too much of a veteran to go in there and lose to Chris Weidman that is coming off a broken leg. That is, a lot of people say he's on the decline. of his career, and having a broken leg and coming back doesn't help you at all. To
Nope.
improve your situation, and fighting a veteran like Brad Tavares doesn't help you at all as well. And that's what we saw. We saw, was that on pay-per-view? No, it was the
No,
prelims
no,
main event.
there's a featured prelim.
Yeah, the feature prelim should have went to somebody else, right? They should have just gave it to the Ultimate Fighter finale guys. But speaking of that fight and a couple of, and three of the main card fights, they all went to decision. You had Ian Gary pick up a win against Neil Magny, which was very impressive. Batista beating Blackshear, and then Vera beating Munoz. And if you look at it, all those guys are ranked. All those fighters are ranked outside of Blackshear, right? And there were good competitive fights, right? And Ian Gary's on his way. Nothing really special to talk about in that fight, except for Ian Gary. He talks the talk and walks the walk. That boy, he does it, man. And
Yeah.
me, I'm not a guy that jumps on the bandwagon, but he talks the talk and walks the walk. He put on that braggadocious, like, fake private workout in the bar type thing, right? And
Yeah.
and that could backfire real easy, right? But it didn't, man. And he went in there and he did his thing and made Neil Magny look like not a top 15 fighter. That's what he did in that fight. Batista, he's on his way. He's part of I think trains a lot with Sean O'Malley as well.
MMA
He got a
lab.
good decision win. He's ranked. Vera, all he needed to do is get his hand raised, and Sean O'Malley does the rest. Yeah, but yeah. So out of those, who was the most impressive, Sicko, for you?
Out of the main card fights,
Yeah.
man, I would have to say Ian Gary. I'd have to say Ian Gary, man. I mean, I think a lot of people put more stock into Neil Magny than I do. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's our group chats and stuff that we're part of, Rob, where a lot of people are harsh on Neil Magny, but I just don't feel like Neil Magny is. And I'll put it to you this way: I remember I said this about Derek Lewis before, and I got a lot of heat for saying this about Derek Lewis. When Cyril Gahn beat Derek Lewis, I was like, it doesn't mean anything to me. Beating Derek Lewis to me doesn't mean much. It just means you were able to avoid a big shot. And I think the same thing with Neil Magny. I'm just like, if you beat Neil Magny, then that just means that you deserving of a top 15 spot. Like, I don't see that as a huge jump. I don't think Neil Magny possesses any one like true top level elite skill set. He's just okay kind of everywhere. He's just a veteran. He's long, he's rangy. His height usually gives people problems. But for Ian Gary, I was like, man, him beating Neil Magny doesn't mean much to me. But the way he did it was impressive. Destroying his leg, butchering it over and over and over, talking to him, telling him to get up. I mean, the animosity that he all of a sudden grew for Neil Magny, I mean, it wasn't there at first, and then it kind of grew. The comments that Neil Magny had that Ian kind of used as fuel, maybe that helped him. But also kind of similar too with Ian Gary was to the what Rob was saying with Tavares and Chris Weidman, where I felt like Ian could have put that fight away. I felt like there was a lot of opportunities that Ian had to finish it off, where I'm like, dude, he's done. Like, he's ready to go. And I don't know if this dude's just sadistic or if he just didn't want to, if he was just too patient. It was either he just really didn't want to accidentally get caught in something, or he's just evil and is like, I want to punish this dude the whole fight. I don't want this fight to end. I want to keep kicking that leg. I want him to be in as much pain as possible. But in terms of performances, yeah, when I look at Batista's performance, it was good. I expected a little bit better, but Blackshear was better than I thought he was going to be. Yeah, just when it comes to those fights, I would say Ian Gary's the most impressive out of those guys.
Yeah, the scorecards were pretty crazy in that fight, especially with Ian Gary and Neil Magny. It shouldn't have been like that, right? Because Neil Magny's supposed to be a top 10, top 15 fighter. You should not be getting 26, 20, 30, you know what I mean? Like 30, 24 by your peer, right? Your contemporary, so to say. J Spec, the Ultimate Fighter, 31, I believe 31, right? The finales happened earlier in the night during the prelims. You had Kurt Hollaball get that submission over Austin Hubbard, and Brad Katona beating Cody Gibson. It's gonna sound like I'm hating on Brad Katona.
Everybody does,
and I am. But I was rooting for Cody Gibson to win because I think Cody Gibson just has a better style to watch in the
Yeah.
UFC than Brad Katona. Brad Katona is gonna win fights. He's gonna lose fights, but I don't know. I just think Cody Gibson is just gonna make much funner matchups in the UFC at that weight. Um, Brad Katona, the first person to win the Ultimate Fighter twice, which is not a. I guess you could be proud of it. Yes, of course you could be proud of it, but it's like that means you have to go on the Ultimate Fighter twice. Like they might as well just put you on the Contender Series 10 times. Um, Kurt Hollabaugh, another guy, you know what I mean? Like he fought the toughest guys in his first run in the UFC, and he gets a huge win, man, over Austin Hubbard, a guy that's super young. I like Hubbard as well, super nice guy. Uh, Kurt Hollabaugh, he's gonna have some fun matchups, man. Is he gonna survive? It's hard to say, but he's gonna have some fun matchups. He's gonna chase finishes. He's a guy, exciting guy to watch. I wish they would just sign these guys, all four of them, again. But J Spec, any of these guys that stood out like between the Ultimate Fighter?
Well, yeah. One, I want to. We brought this up while it was happening, and I think it should be talked about now. I think it's kind of cool that they stuck the Ultimate Fighter finale on the undercard of a pay-per-view event, kind of recognizing the fact that the Ultimate Fighter finale doesn't have enough momentum like it used to be its own marquee show. It used to be its own little separate event that we would all kind of gather up for, and you'd see other people on the cast fight on the undercard. That's not where it's at now. But I thought it was pretty cool and refreshing to have these finalists have their moments on this card. And yeah, just like you, dude, I think Gibson is a better fighter and someone I would, if you're asking who I'm going to pay money to watch, even on a regional scene, I'd rather watch Gibson than Katona. Yeah. Cool. You're the 2-time champ of tough. Okay. Like, that's all there is to say about that.
They need more Canadian fighters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's a Canadian fighter that.
Cool. But the problem, yeah.
SGB.
That's true though, but something we made a joke about with Brad Katana, he could possibly be not only he is the 2-time tough champion, but is he possibly the most hated, unwanted, most disregarded tough champion there ever was? I think so, because my evidence is just a little bit ago we got to see Short Fuse Herman, who was the winner of season 4, walk off into the sunset under his own power. Right, this guy was a season 28 or whatever champ, and he wasn't even the UFC no more. So he loses like one fight. Katona, you're released, but I don't know what I'm gonna say. Now on the other side, Hollabaugh, super happy for him. I'm bummed he didn't get a performance of the night bonus. I'm gonna be honest, because he was losing that first round to Hubbard. Hubbard was kicking his ass, and he turned it around and he got the win. And I think that's epic for the win. Plus, it was a finish on a card that doesn't have that many finishes. Personally, I think Hollabaugh got snubbed a little bit on the bonus, but there you go. That's my thoughts on the final.
Yeah, it seems like you're just a little bit more invested than most people because you probably watch the season, the tough season, every episode. And if you watch it, then you kind of understand the story. When I look at these fights and their positioning on this card, I'm thinking that the UFC really wanted Chandler McGregor on this card. I think that that's what they thought when they put the Ultimate Fighter together. Like, it ends on this date. We'll put Chandler and McGregor on this date to fight each other with, you know what's going on with McGregor. He's a short fuse. But what can you do? They need to fight. They got their fights, on the prelims of a pay-per-view. Great for them. Brand new contracts for the winners. All good. Kicking off the show was back-to-back fights between with the Silva sisters in Brazil, right? Like Silva, Natalia Silva and Karine Silva. Man, they both impressed me, man. Like, of course, we've seen Natalia Silva do her thing, but Karine Silva go in there and knock off Marina Moroz. Sicko, did you expect that?
No, I picked Moroz in that fight. I picked her to win it. I don't know if the layoff had much to do with it. I don't want to say that. I'm just going to give the credit to Silva. She looked fantastic. She looked powerful. She looked good. And congratulations to her. And yeah, both Silvas, man, incredible performances from both girls. I mean, just attackers, just great on the feet. both kind of similar in that aspect where they were just too much on the feet for their counterparts to handle. But yeah, incredible way to start the show. She, it just seems like we're having this time and time again now, right? Where like the main cards are the decisions, and like all the prelims are where you're gonna get the finishes now. So if anybody's out there, you're not watching the prelims and you're only tuning into main cards or pay-per-view main cards, like you're doing yourself a disservice, man. Get in and watch these prelims, watch these people grow, and you see bangers. I mean, they're not fighting for much money. Let's be honest. Like they need the performance bonuses. They're all looking for the 50K. They're all trying to get that. And I think that's why you're seeing these performances and these finishes where once you start getting to the main card, you're ranked. You just need to win. You don't need to go out there and do anything crazy. You don't need a 50K bonus. You're making, pretty decent money. So tune into the people that are making the 12s and 12s and that, are the 50K is going to be more than anything they've made in their last 4 fights combined. Like those are the ones you want to tune into.
My question about those fights, sorry, real quick, is just real quick on KGB Lee. Like, things aren't going good for her recently, huh?
No, well, age catches up. Things can catch up. She's been fighting for a long time as well, and Silva, she's just kicking off her career. Well, in the UFC, right? She has I think she has more fights than Andrea Lee, but there's age difference. There's all kinds of differences, man. Training differences, personal life, all kinds of stuff going on. M is calling somebody out. I think maybe it's me. How can you say beating Magny isn't impressive and at the same time say you are the most impressed with that guy? If that was me, I'm going to say this. Oh, was it you? It's because out of those 3,
yeah, we didn't have much to choose
unimpressive.
From.
You know what I mean? Like that's
they were all decision wins. Yeah, they're all decision wins. And for Neil Magny, what I'm saying is like being Neil Magny, I don't go, okay, he's ready to fight for the title, because if you can beat Neil Magny, you can fight for the title. Like to me, if you beat Neil Magny, that's just like your first step in the right direction. Like that means, okay, you're good enough for me to start thinking about you in top 10 fights. And that's where Neil Magny is. Like he's fine. He's fine. But as far as like the performance, I mean, are we going to say Cheeto's performance was like, oh man, the way he dominated Pedro, or oh man, the way, these guys, like there's only one like dominant win out of those 3, and that was Ian Gary.
Yeah, a decision can be impressive. It can be dominant, right? Like the Zhang Weili fight. That was like a fight that you'd be like, yo, it's a decision, but that was crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy dominant, right? So, there's dominant decisions and there's just decisions that it could be scored the same way, same numbers, but completely different when you watch the fight, right? Completely different. But yeah, so Petrosky, he gets a decision win over Mearshart, and he's always been the guy that's been calling out Bo Nickel. I don't think they're going to give him that fight, but I think Petrosky, he's a problem in the division, man. He can grapple. His striking is getting better, and dude is on a 5-fight win streak now. He hasn't lost in the UFC. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0. Right? Like
it was a rough.
You're a hater.
It was a rough performance. It was.
I see Rob over here shaking his head. Johnny says his striking is improving, and Rob's just like,
if
he has that look like
it is improving.
Hey, he's in the UFC and I'm not. But
yeah.
Listen.
Who are we compared it to?
Yeah, but that was a laborious fight, and with all parties involved, to watch it, to call it, for the 2 gentlemen fighting, you can see both of them were like, can we get this fucking over with? Like that was like chewing a whole pack of gum at once.
I think, but this fight for Petrosky was one of those fights where he just needed to get over the hump and win this fight rather than be impressive or whatnot, because you always want to be impressive in every fight, but yeah, he's getting better. I feel like if Mearshart would have fought him like in the second fight of his UFC career, it would have been different for Petrosky. But he is getting better. He talks a lot too as well, but the dude hasn't lost yet. So, this split decision, people say like, oh, it was rough, but it could be one of those fights that helps him a lot, man, in his career, where he was just like, yo, he could watch it and be like, yo, that was rough. That was like, what did I do wrong in my performance? What did I do wrong in my preparations? And then he could make the changes, right? But I think it's a good one for him, because think about Mearshart. He's like 90-something% finishing rate and has like 900 fights. Like, that's a good guy to fight, right?
And
Yeah.
to your credit though, on Meerschaert's side, dude, like what are you doing? Like you're a veteran with 600 fights. Where was your fight IQ in this match, buddy? Like you suddenly thought you're the best striker in the world, or this was the time to show off all your awesome striking skills. I I don't know. Like
Possibly.
he was committed to like he's like, you know, there's different game plans in a fight. He's like option C, and I'm committed to the third best choice that I got.
Yeah.
All right,
I
well,
mean,
let's
they negated
go
each
ahead.
other. No, I just think they negated each other a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like Petrosky's a really good wrestler, but Meerschaert is dangerous off his back, and he had a really hard time taking him down. And then Meerschaert's just not. He's a great grappler, not necessarily like wrestling though. He's good
Yeah.
once the fight's on the ground, but to get it on the ground, Petrosky's like I said, a really good wrestler. It's gonna be hard to take him down. So unfortunately, because they negated what they both do great, we got to see 3 rounds of what they both don't do so great, which is turned into a
Exactly.
striking battle. I mean, I was still entertained by it. Like they were both landing shots. It was back and forth. I was still entertained. Was it the best striking? Was it clean? Are we oohing and on over their technique? No, but it was still entertaining. I enjoyed
There
it.
you go. And to end the UFC pay-per-view on a good note, we have RoboCop. He came back, got back in the win column, used his jiu-jitsu, used his wrestling, right? His grappling to get the fight to the ground. And what was it?
Used an elbow to the back of the head.
143, right? A lot of people, you know, I posted that little clip from my interview with RoboCop, and he was talking about exactly what he was working on. Like he's like, I'm working on my grappling. I went to train with Rafael Lovato Jr., and then when I got back home, I was training with Wagner Rocha, and I was just like, you know, you could only take so much from an interview before a fight, but that one you really, after coming off that devastating knockout in his last fight, he kind of understood like, yo, I got to take the safer route to finishing fights, to winning fights, rather than sitting there. Because he told me he was addicted to landing knockout, you know, blows. You know what I mean? And he said it was addicted to it. But now he got the reality check, and now he's gonna fight better. And this showed it, man. He understood what he needed to do and went in there and did what he needed to do and finished the fight. Yeah, there was some devastating shots from the back mount when he was flattened out, but it's fighting, man. We could point to that all day. But yeah, shout out to RoboCop for getting his phenomenal victory. Before we get out of here, let's talk about next week's main event. The UFC is flying all the way to this side of the world, to Asia, Singapore, and we're gonna see the matchup, the main event between Max Holloway and the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung. A lot of people, not a lot of people. I always say a lot of people, but I'm gonna say me. I don't like this matchup for the Korean Zombie at all. And I've been saying this since the Max Holloway fight when he won and he called out the Korean Zombie,
Dude,
and
you're
said he wants to
hoping
fight
this-
him.
Like no.
John's been hoping this
Don't do
card
this.
fell apart so long ago.
Don't do it, right? Like, don't put him again. Like Max Holloway, I know he's in a position to get fights that he wants because Volk is a champion. He's lost him 3 times, but you could go to lightweight, and I think he doesn't want to go to lightweight because he's seen what happened at lightweight, right, against Dustin Poirier. But like picking the Koreans, I mean, I could hate on it, but from his perspective, you want the biggest checks for the easiest matchup. That's what you want, right? Like, you know, you still need the fight. You still want to make money. So this is the fight for you. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to be like, why are you hating on the Korean Zombie? I'm just saying, like, look at his last couple of fights and the type of performances that he's been putting on. And he was training at Fight Ready. He did full camps at Fight Ready with the coaching staff and everything, and they still couldn't figure it out. And eventually, once you can't figure it out, you just rely on your toughness. And when you rely on your toughness, you're just taking beatings now, right? And when Brian Ortega outstruck the Korean Zombie, you knew something was wrong. There was something wrong there, right? And now you're going in a couple fights later, and you faced probably one of the best strikers we've ever seen in mixed martial arts, Volk, and took a beating from him. Now you're gonna fight another guy
Might even be worse. Yeah, it might even
that
be
has
worse.
more speed, right? You could say, then that could possibly have more speed than Volkanovski, but a different puzzle because he's much taller, right? The movement is much different, and he's not even training at Fight Ready for this fight. He's training at his own gym with his own own fighters as training partners. I don't like the looks of that at all. Right?
Yeah.
His head coach is supposed to be Eddie Cha. I think that's his head coach, but he's not even in Korea. I don't think he is. He's back in Arizona at Fight Ready. Like, how are you supposed to coach your guy
Skype.
from Skype? You're gonna Skype your coach your guy from across the world? Like this has disaster written all over it. If the Korean Zombie somehow goes in there and wins this fight, it's good and bad. It's good that he won. Bad that he'll continue his career because we don't know what kind of beatings are coming up right ahead. Exactly. But without that said, J-Spec, we'll start with you. What's your prediction on this fight?
The prediction for Max versus Zombie is an easy one. You guys know where I'm going to be at. Swinging in from the Pacific, baby. It's the Blessed Express all day. Choo choo. Get in line. Get on board. But I really agree with you, John. You know, we all have, we're all hardcores. But if you follow the backstories of the fighters and the lead ups to these kind of fights, these kind of critical and obvious mistakes made by veteran fighters is weird and concerning. Because what Korean Zombie is going through right now, we've seen in the past many times, and what ends up happening is what John alluded to: getting your ass kicked for a few fights and just kind of basically selling your name. And that's kind of already happening. Let's be honest. His name, he's kind of been selling his name, getting on marquees because of who he was, not who he's been recently, and paying a big price for it. On the other hand, for Max, good for him on all fronts. You know, keeps him busy, keeps him on a marquee, gets him out in front of the maybe more Asian fans. And, you know, sometimes there's two sides of it, right? Maybe you get fans by them liking you, and sometimes you get people buying your pay-per-views by them hating you. And maybe Max's stock can rise by beating very, very well-respected legend of MMA in Chen Sung-jung in the Asian market, so to speak. It's not in Korea, but whatever's. And we'll see. You know, this is going to be, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the fence you're on, this could be very good or very bad. I think this is Korean Zombie's retirement fight. I think he's just going to go out on a big fight, and I think Max is going to light him up like it's 4th of July, New Year's, pick whatever festival with fireworks you want.
Sicko, could Max underestimate the Korean Zombie? Could he be just, like someone said in the comments, playing UFC video game to get ready for the
Man,
Korean?
I think that's all he's got to do. Like, all Max got to do is just do what Max does. Like, in this fight, we talked about Zombie and his his last fights getting hit and how much he gets hit. And you got somebody who gets hit a lot, and you go, okay, well, the way to negate that, can you smother him? Can you take him down? Is that what Zombie's known for? See this top level wrestler who smothers you and gets in your face? No, he's gonna strike with you, and he's been getting hit a lot. And you're fighting against a guy who has landed the most strikes in UFC history. Like, that is just a really, really bad recipe. There's a recipe for disaster for Zombie. I mean, listen, Zombie still hits hard, right? He still has some power, but that's what we said with Volk. That's what everyone said with Volk was, hey, Volk's probably more skilled everywhere, but Zombie can hit him one time. He can have that power. We just saw it with Amanda Lemos, right? Well, if she can hit that one shot, give me the person that has 10 tools to get the job done instead of the guy who has one tool to get it done. And I just think, 50, 44, somewhere around there. Like, I just really can't see how Zombie gets around. Max would have to make a big mistake, or Max chin would have to just give out all of a sudden. And I don't know about you guys, but who has a better chin than Max Holloway? Like, it's going to be one strike from Zombie to the 8 strikes from Holloway, and that's going to happen for 5 rounds.
Yeah, and when you look at it, the Zombie, he's in his late 30s, I believe.
Yeah.
Let me check. He's 30. He's 36, so he's in his mid 30s. Max Holloway is just entering his 30s, right? But M mentions I like the matchup. Both guys are rather long in the tooth either way. Yeah, they do have a lot of fights between them, right? Between them, they do have a lot of fights. Um, yeah, everybody's always wondering when is the damage going to catch up to Max Holloway? Because the damage has caught up to the Korean Zombie now, right? Like he's 36, he's still fighting. Max Holloway, he says, do you guys think Max might retire after this fight? If Max retires after this fight, I would be happy for him and shocked, right? Because he's still one of the best in the world, clearly.
Isn't he
And
younger than Volk?
yeah, he's younger than Volk is about like a couple years younger than Korean Zombie.
How crazy is that?
Crazy.
That Max could be like, I'll just wait for this dude to retire. Even though I've been fighting for like 6 years longer than Volk, I'm just gonna wait for him to retire, then I can regain the title at 145. Like that's wild.
I could see. I wouldn't mind even seeing that because I don't even see Volk fighting for many years longer. Right? It looks like he's looking after the biggest fights and he's ready to retire when it's time for him to retire.
Move up again.
Yeah, he wants to move up. Max, he could go chill for a little bit, recover any injuries that he has, nagging stuff, and return when Volk moves up and fight for the title after this one. And I think that might be the plan, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
because they both have the same. Fights. They basically have. They don't have the same manager, but they have managers that are close to each other. You know what I mean? And of course, they will fight each other and make money. But you know, I can see plans. I can see pathways for both these guys. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I think the Zombie has shown to us that he is really, really long on the tooth right now, and I just don't want to see him take another beat down because he's been taking beat downs. Even in his wins, remember the Dan Ige fight? He got injured in that fight. He tore his shoulder out. I think he might try to implement the same game plan that he did against Dan Ige against Max Holloway. And if it doesn't work, and then that's when he stands and trades with Max Holloway, and that could turn into a mess. But it is what it is. We're gonna watch it next weekend. Singapore, it will be live. I will not be there. I'm trying to limit my traveling as much as possible. But yeah, there's some incredible fights. You got Anthony Smith returning against Ryan Spann. Giga Chikadze, who was supposed to fight Max Korean Zombie, ends up getting matched up with Alex Caceres, which is a good fight. I feel like, and Giga has been out for a long time. You got Aaron Blanchfield fighting Talia Santos, Junior Tafa versus Parker Porter, a couple other fire matchups. Sting, Sungu Choi is getting another shot, even though he's lost 4 in a row against Jarno Aarons. That's gonna probably be a pretty good fight as well. You know, some Asian prospects. But other than that, it is what it is. It's another UFC card.
Have they came out and said that the Santos Blanchfield is like a number 1 contender fight? Because they said like the winner gets the title fight.
They don't even care about that fight. It seems like it's like buried.
I haven't seen a lot of talk about it, man. But
exactly.
To me, that should be whoever wins that fight. In my opinion, should definitely get the next title fight.
Yeah, because Talia Santos arguably beat Valentina as well. You know what I mean? It's just judges didn't think so. But yeah, of course, yes, Chitty's on the card as well. Chitty's gonna fight. That fight is gonna be insane. Chitty and Kawani versus Mikhail Olengeklek or whatever his name. I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah,
hey, one more. We definitely got to mention Tafa Gang, baby. Junior Tafa getting in the mix again. So
Parker Porter, he fights his brothers. Basically, they're fighting each other's. Like, that's weird, right? Like, brothers, both of them are heavyweights. They're fighting the same guys in the division. It's like, it must suck. You know what I mean? Especially if you got knocked out by one of them. And then now you're facing the brother who probably has more knockout power, right? And younger as well. Just, what can you do, man? The UFC, they want to set people up for damage. But yeah, make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, subscribe to the channel. We will be back next week, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday to recap UFC Singapore main event between Korean Zombie and Max Holloway. Go to the app, make picks, join JSpec's League, watch the spaces. This one will probably be early morning spaces. No, it's same time, right?
No, it
No,
is
it's not the same
crazy time for us. So we get a taste of what it's like for all you global fans. We
Oh,
appreciate
this
you.
one's gonna be in the evening over here.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
2
it's like
a.m. for me, 2:30 a.m. West Coast time. It's 5:30 for the East and whatever it is for Central.
I ain't gonna
Oh,
lie, bro. I'm catching the main card only on this one.
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
Well, it's a fight night, so what can you do?
I'll be
Yeah.
snorting Red Bulls and running the Spaces watch party. So you guys, whatever times in you come join us, we'll be watching the fights.
All right, there you go. Make sure you guys go join the spaces. Any last words, J Spec or Sicko, before we get out of here?
Bro.
I just want to say thanks to everybody participating in JSpec's Prize League and on the AllStar app in general. Thanks for everybody who comes by to our Spaces watch party. Thank you to my co-host times two. Thank you, John. And that's it. Stay safe, everybody. See you next week.
Sicko.
Welcome to the Sugar Show era, baby.
There you go. You
And
remind us. And new. So we'll see. Hopefully we get a couple new champions by the end of the year. If not, the reigning champions are just as good. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.